Hi, welcome to Jeremy's Tech Channel, and today we're checking out Zorin OS 17.1. My name's Jeremy, this channel's about tech, go figure. And today, I'm about to use one of the worst dad jokes known to man. We're going to look at Zorin OS and see if it's out Zorin. Okay, I know that was bad, but I had to try. Anyways, I'm taking a look at Zorin OS today, and I have a couple of good reasons why. One, they have an education edition that is really interesting to me because of my kids. We're homeschooling. We're actually world schooling right now. We're in Thailand right now. And all world schooling is instead of reading about Thailand or the country you're in, you go experience it. And that's what we're doing right now. It's super cool. Loving it. But I really want to be able to better support them right now where they're using Chromebooks. And I'm wondering if there's something better out there. So I want to take a look at this. We'll flip over. I'll show you some of the advantages. Two, I wanted to see what the difference is between any other Ubuntu-based distribution. Should you just use Ubuntu? Should you use something like Pop! OS or Linux Mint or Zorin OS, whatever it is? What makes it unique? What makes Zorin OS unique? And I think this might be great for you to learn today because they have a couple things that might interest you and piqued my interest. So we'll take a look at a couple of things. So here's Zorin OS's website. And first off, they have three major editions with a fourth edition that is for very old hardware, which essentially uses XFCE. That's a desktop environment. What we're going to use is we're going to use the core edition today to see some things, but there's a couple things I wanted to show you. One is for schools. I started scrolling down here, essentially they put things you can get already, but they have this Calibri app, which is a large collection of educational tools. But this is what interested me, was this Veon app, homeschooling and things like that. This has got a management console, this Veon management console. Teachers can see what every student is doing at a glance. Staff can even take control of students' computers when they need help or broadcast their screen to their students remotely and wirelessly over the local network. My kids having a problem, instead of me or my wife having to go downstairs or them bring their devices upstairs or, into another room, we can remote in, help them out from there. And I think that's super cool. And also we can see, what did you finish? What did you finish that quiz? Can you do that at a glance? And I think that's super cool. And then two, this goes across their whole layer, is they have essentially a way for IT staff to manage and deploy machines with an app called Zorin Grid, which is coming soon, which I think is interesting. They also have a Pro Edition. And I was like, what do I get with the Pro Edition versus the Core Edition? And really, you don't get that much in and of itself, but the combined things might be interesting to you. One is they have an extra set of desktop layouts that you can set up. Zorin OS uses a base of Gnome 3. So I'm sure you can set this up on your own, but if you have someone that you are supporting, they want to have a more Mac OS experience or an Ubuntu or Windows 11-like experience, you can set it up plus the regular desktop layouts that they have. And I'm still like, okay, well, that's not worth spending money on. But then they essentially already go ahead and include things like Blender and things like that, which I can already install. But just remember, helping and setting up your parent or another family member or friend with this, already having it pre-set up might be nice. They also go through and say how much money you can save with open source software. And I think that's a nice thing to show people in general. But, okay. But what they did is they have this checklist, and what I appreciate is they're very upfront with what you're getting if you spend the money. It's $47. You can install on as many computers as you want for personal use, organizational use. That's different. But essentially, they offer, the classic Office Suite stuff, which we get on every distribution. They offer Zorin Connect, which I did check. Zorin Connect, here's the GitHub page, and it is an open source project based on the KDE Connect app for Android. It's KDE Connect with maybe some bells and whistles or some theming or some specific functionality that they need for their desktop environment. So it's KDE Connect for Zorin. Okay, standard desktop layouts. The 6 premium one is what you pay for Pro, which you can set up yourself. Professional grade suite of apps, essentially they add other things that you can install yourself. Advanced productivity tools, same deal. Additional artwork, they add some artwork there. But here's what I find interesting and appreciate the language here. It says supports the development of Zorin OS. They're not trying to say you'll get extra support or this super special thing. It's really, here it is. And if you really want to support the development of Zorin OS, you purchase this license, that's good to go. You purchase the license for each major version, okay? So you'd spend $47 on 17, and then you would spend $47 when 18 comes out. That's kind of how they work. That's kind of how they do it. You can decide whether or not that's worth it for you, but you still can get the core version for free. And that's what we're going to look at now. After you download the ISO, put the ISO on a USB drive or put it in a virtual machine, this is what you're greeted with. You can try Zorin, or you can go ahead and install Zorin OS. We'll go ahead and quickly install it. Just walk through the installer process. Maybe it's a little different than these other distros that we're discussing. What separates it from other distributions like Pop! OS, Ubuntu, Linux Mint? Let's see. All right, basics here. But you can go ahead and download some updates and third-party software for graphics and Wi-Fi hardware, which you see with a lot of Ubuntu-based distributions. But they have this don't participate in the census. They say the census lets Zorin OS developers count the number of users anonymously, and you can read what they mean there. For this demo, I'm going to say do not participate. We're going to use the whole disk space for this operating system, and you can resize partitions here. Essentially, they're going, if you want to use this alongside another operating system like Windows, you can, but if you're going to use the whole thing, install now. Time zone, that time zone is correct. I am in Thailand right now, and I always love picking back to my home time zone, so that's what I'm doing. Setting up a user is very normal. Set up your password. You can also set up and be a part of Active Directory if you're in a business environment right here. When this is finished installing, I'll get back in and we'll boot right in the environment and see what separates Zorin OS from these other Ubuntu-based distributions. Okay, and here is what we boot into after our install. The install time was on the slower side, but if it did all the updates right there from the install process, which it looked like it did, I'll check here in just a moment, then it really doesn't seem to be a big deal because you went ahead and updated your system before you went in and booted in for the first time. I'm okay with that. So we get this tour here, and remember, our filter here is to look at A, what separates this from other Ubuntu-based distributions? Why would we even choose this? And two, is this something that we could work with and deploy in multiple environments, like an education environment, a family member, a friend? Would it be easy for you to deploy and make things easier? Don't get me wrong, it's so easy to install Linux Mint or Pop! OS, but there might be some things for the user that might be easier. So let's take a look. We're going to go ahead and go through this tour, not because I think tours are super fun, but remember, I'm looking at people who might need a tour, so I'm going to quickly walk through this. Open the menu to launch apps. Someone might need to know that. Choose the desktop look with Zorin appearance. So you launch this application here. And remember, we're doing the core edition, so there's only 4 main environments to choose from. But you guys, if you're watching my channel, you probably know how to get yourself around in Gnome 3 and to be able to add some extensions and organize this the way you want to. But just for a user's perspective, we can select that. Looks like there's a shift in the panel. Then you've got this version here. Okay, so very Gnome-like, but I guess if you have like a touch screen or something, that might be easier. And then a very classic Gnome situation. I'm gonna go ahead and leave it as it was, and I will go ahead and make it dark. The background changed with that. You have an accent color. Jelly mode. Okay, sorry, I have to see this really quick. Oh, the old school, but that was on KDE there for a while. If you really want your woohoo desktop cube, oh man, we're gonna leave that stuff alone for now. But it looks like they're trying to give the user something fun so that they might appreciate and dig into this a little more and not just throw it away soon. Well, we still found some updates. The install process was a little slow for me, but we will go ahead and run this software updater in just a little bit. I do like this. Remind me later. Desktop, you can add some icons on the home folder if you decide you want it, or you can just completely remove it and then adjust your fonts. It's letting me know, and it knows I'm on a virtual machine. That's interesting. But it's letting me know, hey, it's not gonna be as fast as it would be if you were on bare metal, which It's true. They're going to ahead and let you access and connect your online accounts. I guess you click this. This looks very similar to what Pop! OS or Ubuntu has. And then Zorin Connect here, which I mentioned is very similar to KDE Connect. Use software to find and install apps, which we will go ahead and launch. Essentially the Gnome Software Center, which is not a bad thing. It's a good software center. It's pretty great. So obviously, there's nothing new here. If I want to install GIMP, here it is, and you have your selection. Do you want it to be FlatHub, Snap, or Zorin OS apt package? There you go. So it looks like Snap is enabled here, so you can use Snap, Flatpak, or your classic deb packages. Having Snap's, Flatpaks, and deb packages available to you is, as far as out of the box, does make it unique. You know, Ubuntu only starts off offering snaps. Pop! OS and Linux Mint starts off just offering Flatpaks, obviously with deb packages. But Zorin OS tries to give all the options available so you can choose Flatpak, snaps, or deb packages. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and click install. That, to me, that might be a little overwhelming for a user, but it did look like it defaulted to Flatpak, so probably the user would just go directly to a whatever is the default and just use a Flatpak. All right, it installed the program. I'm just gonna check it. Although I could have launched it there, I'm gonna check in the menu here. I've got this graphics option here, and there is GIMP, and here it is, ready to use. Okay, no problem. There used to be this deal with some Linux distributions. Sometimes it would be difficult for the software that you just installed to easily populate in the proper category. And it wasn't a big deal, but I just wanted to see. One thing I'm noticing is it doesn't automatically move and tell you what's in graphics by hovering over it with your mouse. You do need to click on it to go back and forth. I'm not a fan of that. Other than that, the basic things that are installed in the core edition is Firefox, remember, which is a remote desktop solution. Office comes with LibreOffice, still comes with a if you have a CD burner or DVD burner on your computer, you can still use that. Cheese, Rhythmbox, and some system tools. They have this Windows app support, which essentially installs Wine, Play on Linux, to make some things easier for people trying to run Windows applications on their computer and try to make it easier for them to work through. And then some basic utilities here. I'm going to pull up the system monitor. I still have the software center open. And when I go to resources, it looks like we're using 2.7 gigabytes, which is a typical modern GNOME desktop environment baseline for memory usage, and the CPU is purring along just fine, minimally. And it looks like with their software updater, it lets you know, and you can go ahead and install. Let's finish this little tutorial. Okay, so it's just a simple tour, and I do appreciate that I got a little lost in the weeds trying to walk through as a user would using that tour. It would really help someone set up their system, so I do appreciate that. I'm going to go ahead and run this. Yes, I can run this in the terminal, but I'm thinking as a person who is a regular user and allowing that to happen as we continue to walk through this system. You remember on the Pro version, there were extra desktop wallpapers as a feature. I'm just going to see what basically they have. They still have plenty of options here to adjust and change, and obviously you can download or add your own. And I also like that this panel is a little transparent, but that's no big deal. You have your workspaces set up with a button. You have, if you hit Control, Alt, and left and right, you can move between your workspaces. Just a little tweak that they've done there. If you hit the super key, or for me, that's the Windows key, the workspaces pull up and you can do things just like on any other GNOME desktop and search and do everything you need there, which is very nice and simple. We're using files here. What I do want to check out is the Veon software, which was the teacher portal that you could use with other student computers in the environment. I saw it in the software center as I was poking around, but I want to see what happens if I click the link on the website. I want to see how it works because I think it's smart. If people are moving from Windows to Linux, they might be very used to finding what they need on the website, downloading the executable, and then installing it that way. Obviously, you and I are probably used to going into the terminal or into the software center and finding what we're looking for, but I do think it's smart that they have that available. And so I'm going to check that out here for schools, and we're going to click this install Veon right here. Let's see what it's going to do. Choose an application to open the file. Looks like you have a couple of choices here. I'm going to choose the apt URL because it's the default. Install. Very cool. I'm going to enter this configurator. It looks like you can set things up specifically, restrict access to members of a specific user groups, process access and control rules, enable usage of domain. So if you want to use the domain, if you want to use the basic default system user groups or the LDAP basics, you can use either of those and have that set up. Build your directory, predefine applications or websites that they can be on, and setting up LDAP basics. This is actually very great. I think is unique to Zorin OS. It doesn't mean that they won't have that available for Pop! OS or for Ubuntu or other things because open source is that way. Woohoo! Having it easily configurable is very, very nice. Here you can demo, you can monitor other devices on the network that are using it. So think about a student environment, not an IT environment. Think a student environment, and you're trying to help 20 students to be able to work on their math problems or work on their science and to do anything else but just help them out. This is really great. You can set up a demo, walk them through on their screens and make it happen. You can lock a screen to maybe get full attention. Maybe they're not listening and you can lock that up. You can view without interaction. You can remote control with interaction. Maybe you're having problems coding something. Maybe you're doing and working a Blender class and want to show them how to do it. You know, powering on, rebooting, power down, all of this stuff. Start an application, open a website for users. Man, that is cool. If there are other things like this that I don't know about for working in education environments, specifically if you're homeschooling or in a classroom, let me know, because to me, this is actually something that sets Zorin OS apart, and I think it's pretty stinking cool. So what really separates Zorin OS in this space? What would make me want to use it over Ubuntu on its own if this is what I want to do? Obviously, you may not be an Ubuntu guy and you don't want to use Ubuntu. You want to use Debian, you want to use Arch, you want to use Fedora, you want to use whatever. Great, that's not the point in this scenario. In this scenario, what separates it from other Ubuntu-based distributions that typically tout themselves as user-friendly distributions? Ubuntu, Linux Mint, Pop! OS, for example. And really, there isn't much as a Linux user that would make me want to use that over one of those other distributions for myself. However, if I was deploying something in multiple computers, I would probably consider Zorin OS over the others because of some of those features like Zorin Grid in education environments, that Veon application, and the integration that's already there. I think it's very helpful. And I think from a user's perspective, it really does try to make it as warm and fuzzy as possible for that user to be able to access what they need and get things going. Do I think it's, head and shoulders above any other user-friendly distribution? No, but I think it's a good option. And I also like that they've set things up where if you want to support the project, they have some little extra features to give you, but they just say, hey, support the project, pay for it, and we'll give you little extras and we can do this together. If I were in an education environment like I am, I'm going to consider using this maybe over some other options. Zorin OS is pretty cool. Anything they tout as something extra special, they do have some extra tools that they do to try to make things easier. The Windows install for wine and bottles, they try to just save a couple steps for a newer user. They set up the looks tab instead of you going and fiddling through and trying to get Gnome to look the way you want it to and just have some predefined looks might be something that's attractive to you. They set up a Zorin Connect to work the way that they wanted to with their desktop environment and their operating system, which is fine and dandy with me. But other than that, the other professional tools and educational tools you can find on any distribution and doesn't really separate itself in that way. But like I mentioned, if I'm deploying in a school or a small office environment, I would definitely consider using Zorin OS and consider the Pro version for an office environment. And I would consider the Education Edition for obvious reasons in deploying it. Let's continue to do this Linux thing. See you next time.